Hello guys, welcome to the Raid and Trade channel. We're here with Ben Kreuzkamp. And what did you do?
We played the Maintal Regional today with 436 players, I believe, and I went 8-1 and got second place. I also used the same deck that I used last weekend in Mössigen to go 6-1 and get 6th place, which is also the same list that I used at the German Open, where I got 13th place by going X2, which was I think 7-2, I believe.
All right.
So yeah. Let's get right into the deck profile. I didn't change a lot from the list that I used in Cologne, but I changed some text on the side a bit, so I figured I'd profile it. Yeah, for the engine, 3 Albas, 3 Albar, 3 Tragedy, because we're still playing 53 cards. 53 this time, not 52 I think I played. With Tragedy, 3 Tragedy, Allure, Patchwork, Deep Draw, whatever. And 1 ad libitum. Then for the branded monsters, I played Triple Albion because it sets up Cartesia, branded in red, and it's a dark for Allure. And we're not playing around draw anyways in this list, so just fuck it. 2 Cartesia, which is necessary because of Desires. 1 Spriggan's Kit and 1 Mercuria. I'm not playing more Mercuria because it's a pretty dead draw without Allure. Then I played 1 Shadow Dragon. This one's new. Didn't play this in Cologne. This is a searchable out to Grave of the Super Ancient Organism. You can send this off Branded Fusion. Or Foolish Burial, I guess. And you can also send this against, or fuse it off against Runic, because most Runic decks this format have a monster in their extra monster zone at the start of your turn if you're going second. So they will probably not see this coming, whether it's coming off of Branded Fusion or just a random fusion spell, whatever. So you often get to pop their fountain with it, which is really cool, so you have to worry about less about their follow-up and their Runics. 1 Dark Magician for Dragoon. And then, best part of the deck, Patchwork Engine, 3 Etchum, 3 Patchwork, 2 Polymerization. Chimera with Polymerization is just disgusting. It's still broken, especially against all the Runic decks that are running around now. And I think this is one of the best reasons to play this deck. It's probably the only reason why it's worth risking losing to Ash. Then 3 Branded Fusion, 3 Branded Opening, self-explanatory, 2 Branded in red, because it's not a bad draw necessarily, and you want to have 2 because of Desires. 1 Branded Lost for the branded spells. And then no branded in white, since I still don't like all the extra lines. I try to cut down on the bricks as much as possible and play a lot of consistency cards. 3 Deployment, and then consistency cards, 3 Allure, 2 Desires, 1 Foolish, 1 Goldstar. These are starters. Of course, a little bit worse than having Allure or Branded Fusion Hard Draw, but they're kind of flexible because this can also send Dragon and this can also banish Mercuria. And then for non-engine, I played Dark Ruler instead of Gamma that I had before, because I figured this is much more impactful on its own. In most of the matchups, it helps you break the board lock. It helps you a lot against the Runic decks, because yes, the Runics exist, but against this deck, with targeting 1 targeting negate and 1 targeting pop is probably not enough to keep you from Chimera popping their whole board and taking over the game. And 3 Super Poly still, because it's very flexible, synergizes very well with your engine. I don't think this card needs much explanation. And then still 1 Branded Banishment. Still not 100% on this card, but it won me a mirror today, and it's a very cool tool if you're breaking a board and you cannot end on an Albas or Despia monster in the grave. That 1 fusion monster is enough to set up an interruption on your opponent's turn, especially if they're trying to get rid of your Mirror Jade and then you reborn the Mirror Jade and you get to use it again. Then for the extra deck, I think it's pretty standard. It's 2 Mirror Jade, 2 Albion, 2 Rebellion, 2 Chimera. I think the second one is really important if you play with Patchwork, because you can use 1 to break the board and 1 on their turn. 1 Rindbrum, 1 Sprint as a super poly target for Albas. And also you can get kit with this. 1 Masquerade, 1 Granguignol, 1 Stepelia, 1 Dragoon, 1 Starving Venom. I'm still playing Starving Venom over Mud Dragon and Garura because I think this one is the most versatile if you're just able to play one. And it can also be really annoying against some decks because not every deck has a way to out it. For example, I made this against Mathmech and he had a really hard time access code OTKing me just because as soon as he kills this, I'm blowing up his board. So he had to play really weird and ended up losing to this. Also, there's a really cool interaction that I had at the German Open, which is if you Super Poly, or if you make this into a Kashtira board, they usually have Fenrir plus Shangri-La left, and they're pretty much forced to banish this, because otherwise you can copy the Fenrir, go into battle phase, banish the Shangri-La and kill the Fenrir, and then you're outing their whole board with just this card. And then for the side deck, I played 3 Ash. I'm still not playing back removal, so this is the best that it gets. Against Labyrinth, I'm relying on stopping their engine, because I think back removal is by far the least versatile side deck cards you can play right now if you already have a good Runic matchup, because Runic decks also build a huge board. I think negating or preventing the board in Runic is much more important in this deck than preventing Fountain. Gamak is the most impactful hand trap on its own, and you have to run some amount of hand traps to combat Ibli and Kashtira full locking you. 3 Kurikara against Kashtira lock, or Kashtira in general. 2 Magnamut with no additional Bestials, because you can always search Albion or Albus. I think this is just the best one. And I needed something for the Mirror and Mathmech, so these two were definitely the best spots, and I only had 2 spots. So if I played 1 Magnamut and 1 Druid's Worm, 50% of the time I would have just drawn a worse card. And this deck cannot get rid of Druid's Worm very well, except by like Polymerization, make Chimera, so it's very hard to get the removal effect. 1 Cult Buy for going first, and Explosion Lock for going first. I made in 3 tournaments, I used this 1 time, so I'm not sure whether it's really necessary to play. But sometimes it can help you against decks that have a lot of engine or breakers, and you just Explosion Lock them and they're not able to really play through your board with breakers. But in general, everybody should be prepared for this and be playing hand traps, and at that point you can just make the normal board. So, not sure whether you need to play this, so don't worry if you are not having access to the puppet, or if you feel like this is overkill, feel free to cut it. Yeah, overall, I still think this deck is very underrated. I think there's basically no popular players playing this except for me. Like, most people are going towards Runic decks right now because they feel that those decks give them a bit more agency. But this deck is also really strong to board, so going second, if they don't Floodgate or FTK you, especially against the Runic decks, if you don't get Nat Beasted, you can really play into their board, and you break the board very often, more often than any other deck in the format, I feel. So I think this actually, if you're playing, gives you a lot of agency as a player, which I like, and you actually do not lose to Ash that often, because the Runic decks aren't playing Ash in the main deck, so especially in later rounds, 50% of the decks are just not playing Ash in game 1. And even if you get Ash, Cartesia helps you to play through a lot of the times by now. So I think a lot more people should give this a try, and I think it's very underrated still, even though it's kind of a tier 1 contender and people still respect it. Yeah, I was very happy with the pick.
Alright, any shoutouts, last words?
Shoutouts to Sebastian and Nikas, who built the list with me and also piloted the deck. Sebastian got 10th this tournament. Was really close for him. He nearly made top 8 as well. They convinced me to play this deck for German Open last week, and it worked really well. It was very good that I trusted them, and I think we built a very solid list, even though it's 50 somewhat cards. It went really well for all of us. So yeah, special shoutouts to them. Of course, shoutouts to our team, Raid and Trade, for testing with me and preparing for the format, even though it's probably nearly over. Let's hope so, at least. Yeah, I'm really shoutouts to 100%, of course. They're also testing and putting up with me and my stupid deck lists and ideas. So, yeah. Oh, of course, I have to especially shout out Johannes Bauer as well, because he gave me the initial Cologne list that I played. So, of course, big credits to him. A lot of these ideas are his, actually, and not mine. Yeah, I think that's it.
All right, thank you a lot. Congrats again.
Yeah.
And see you next time
Yeah.
on our channel.
See you next time.